This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Hey, everybody, welcome to Resonance. This is, I don't know about y'all, but it's one of my happiest times of year. Thanksgiving is one of those holidays that just is right for me. It's about people coming together. It's about cooking, at the center of it all. And it's about just sitting around for a long time, sharing thoughts, feelings, and it's just great. Now, we've all had Thanksgivings that are terrible. We've all had Thanksgivings where the crazy relatives show up or somebody has a little too much hooch. But for the most part, Thanksgivings are lovely and wonderful times. And we're going to go ahead and start wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving right at the top of this. And of course, it's Randy Harrington and Steve Azar. And he has been working hard, man. He has been on tour. He has been singing his heart out for the last 4 or 5 days. We're going to give him a break. And then Mike, the monk guy Farrell, is going to be bringing home all the wisdom for us on this. And so because it's Thanksgiving, we thought it would be very appropriate to spend a little time talking about being thankful and how gratitude works in a leadership context. And I was in the car, as we all are, and I heard on the radio yesterday an interview with a woman who was 106 years old. And she was having her birthday party, and they asked her, well, what's your philosophy of life for how you've lived this long? And she said, well, I started this philosophy when I was about 70, and it's worked for me all these years. And she was quite articulate. And she said, my philosophy is be nice to everybody and be appreciative when somebody is nice to you. And then her son jumped on right after that and said, that is who she is. That is the way she rolls. And everybody loves being around her and loves giving her support and taking care of her because she's so grateful for having it happen. So if we're going to be 106 years old, we got to get our attitude right. That's what I'm saying. We got to get our head on the tracks. Yeah.
We'll have to wait till 70 till we become that. Like we should all know better that is a beautiful way of saying it. And such a short, there's 2 sentences, it says it all.
It just says it all. And I thought about it all day yesterday. And I thought, I was in the grocery store and I was like, I'm going to be nice to this person because I can be. That's
yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
we need it these days.
Right. Yeah.
So, Mike, you have a different impression on this. Yours is a little deeper. It's a little richer because for you, this isn't just like being nice to people. This is about a foundational value,
right?
That's going to change your orientation to the whole world. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. Gratitude is, if you study positive psychology, gratitude is the first thing that they talk about in positive psychology. Martin Seligman and his work on positive psychology, one of the first exercises he has people go through is this gratitude exercise where they state 3 things that they're grateful for every single day. And it really begins to establish that as a foundation that when you're grateful, you allow people into your space, you allow people into your conversation in a very different way than just, having a conversation. And so I think the idea is that this gratitude exercise is to really get in the right mindset. The other thing that's interesting is when you look at the studies on gratitude's not only something nice to do to somebody or something nice to do, in terms of a conversation. The other piece of it is it's actually physically really good for you. There have been multiple studies done on this idea of gratitude. And if you look at those studies, you see that it's lower blood pressure, it's lower cancer rates, it's lower heart disease. People that practice these every single day. I'm very fortunate. My wife, Ann, has been doing this forever. She's been doing a gratitude journal long before she knew me, and
Oh,
she
wow.
does it every single night. She writes in a gratitude journal and does that, and it kind of rubbed off on me. I do it in the mornings now. I do it as part of my morning routine and my morning prayer from a gratitude standpoint. But it really is good for your health. I mean, it really is not only just something that you should do, it's something that you should do to be healthier. And so I think from a
Like when you have
leadership,
a dog, right? I mean, you got dogs, and your dog, you got to, when you just petting the dog, just being nice to the dog is just that little, it's just that 1 second that sort of breaks the cycle of, oh, I've got so much to do and there's so much stuff going on. And,
yeah,
you know,
I just
you've
had
got a
that.
big old
I
golden
just had
retriever.
that this morning. I was on with a call, and next thing you know, Toby, my golden retriever, is sitting next to me wanting attention. And it's like, okay,
Yeah. 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 I guess I need to get a little gratitude out here.
right, right, but and I know, Steve, we've talked a lot about your shows with a Viking and kind of your approach from a gratitude standpoint there. And I know, why don't you kick in and talk a little about that?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go way back before I get there briefly and just say this. I always felt like when people came to see me play and then they would repeat and repeat, if you didn't give them all of your time that you had extra, then I felt like that I would be extremely wrong. Now I was tearing my voice up along the way and all this, but I felt like was so appreciative. And I've always been appreciative of that. When we play our shows, we play for 45 minutes, right? Or an hour, maybe 75 minutes after the hits. And that was that your night just got started. You have 3 hours worth of signing autographs. If there was hundreds and hundreds of people, you just couldn't sign and send them away. Hey, what's your name? Where you from? You have to do all that. And because you've got to be grateful for everybody that takes the time to want to stand in that line, first of all, and in the heat or in the cold or in the this and that. And I just always felt like I was the lucky one, always. And I feel like that's just where I was raised. And going to today with Viking Cruise Line, they are equally as gratifying as we are. They are equally as concerned at making sure the word profound hospitality, your word, that taking it to that extra level. And how grateful can you be? And how grateful will they be because you care that much? And I think it's been a perfect collision of their philosophy and which is probably their purpose, right? Right? We
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
a core nucleus that everything revolves around. Their purpose is being grateful, being hospitable. And so it's been great. I don't have to be reminded to be grateful. I've been humbled enough where things really go well and things don't, and mostly they don't in
And
our
you, and
business.
you know that your success depends on all kinds of people around you. And this to me is the piece of it, right? There's no way that great show can occur just because Steve Azar is hitting every note and
No.
his hair looks fantastic
Steve
today.
Azar is not hitting every note, and his hair doesn't look fantastic. There's a lot of moving parts, and those are the people that are around you. I'm a team player. I believe,
Yes.
and I'm telling you right now, the magic of a team and the celebration of when you've done it right together. It's so wonderful to have people to share it with, and you can look around you and see the relationships that you build in life. Those relationships, because you were grateful and because they were grateful to you, right? Back, it's a mutual thing. They're the ones that you go to the wall for. And they're
Yeah.
also it's easy. So petting your dog, it's easy. That's an easy
Right.
thing. It brings your blood pressure down. And also, like you talked about health wise, and my prayers every morning, I visualize you guys. I visualize that you're in my life now. I visualize all my bandmates, everything when they're in my mind. When I'm praying, I visualize their safety, their family, and it's a long list of people. And I'm grateful that I have a long list to pray for.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That was
I
a gimmick I used to use to stay up late at night because you're there, you're doing your prayers and bless the 700 people that were in the bless. And my dad would be like, yeah, you've got enough. You're done now. Blessing people. Get your butt in bed.
My day feels so good when I work out and I pray and I do those two things, and coffee tastes so much better.
yeah,
And that's when I can really relax. So I hit the ground running with the workout and the prayers, and then I come down and have coffee. Gwen prays first, my wife, Gwen, and then she has coffee, and then she works out later. We have two different schedules there, but yeah, I love the idea of what y'all are talking about writing down that holds you to it, doesn't it?
right. It
Probably
does.
starts the day off with going like, oh, that reminds you, just in case you get a little bit worked up. Last night I called at 1:28 a.m., 1:30 a.m. and 1:32 a.m. from the hotel that my guys are staying in.
Uh-oh.
And this morning I wasn't. I mean, I was 4 nights in a row. I was very hoarse. I'm hoarse now, and so I finally gotten to sleep. And man, I couldn't even talk. And so I thought something happened to my guys because they kept. I woke up this morning and I had a discussion with them, and instead of calling their CEO or calling and going like, who's calling me at 1:30? It wasn't even for me. It was some other deal that had nothing to do with me or my guys. And I decided I reached out to him today and checked on him. And after I prayed, I came down the mountain, and I didn't do what I wanted to do at 1:32 in the morning,
Right.
which was kidding me, calling me. It, got over that, went back to sleep, woke up after I've said my prayers. I called and I said, everything okay? And so I handled it a lot better than I would have handled it at 1:32. And so I'm grateful that I didn't do what was on my mind then, because my mind was here.
Right. Yeah. We're gonna make a Benedictine out of you yet, Steve, because you just did the long pause. Little did you know that at 2:00 this morning you were doing a little stazio.
There's that word. I love it.
The
Well,
other. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, the other thing about gratitude, I think, is one of the most important aspects about gratitude. And I see this working with leaders. I see it, in people. It's the whole idea that gratitude can be done and it's really hollow. One of the great examples that I talk about when I do workshops and stuff on this is how many times have you gotten a Christmas present or a birthday present or something, and you opened it up and you thought, wow, they sure put a lot of thought into this one, didn't they? It's like, gee, another pair of underwear, and I think that's the aspect of gratitude that's so important is authenticity, making sure that we're really authentic in that gratitude. I think it can be really easy. I mean, and I probably do it all the time when I drive through the Starbucks every morning. It's like, gee, thanks, have a good day, and I'm on my way. And, was I really authentic about that? Or is that just something I'm saying for the sake of saying it, and I think that authenticity is so important.
I want to say this real quick. You're talking about Starbucks going through a drive-through. I have this thing that I do, and Gwen cracks up. She goes, did you just say you love them? Because when they are so nice and drive any drive-through, and there is a difference between authenticity and true gratefulness and true thank you compared to not.
Right.
Sometimes you get nothing. It's like, why are you here? But every once in a while, and as I'm driving up, I go, I love you. Like that as a thing. And I'm going like, Gwen goes, oh my gosh. She said, how nice were they? I was at a Wendy's, and I'm so upset because I had to get to the airport, and it was late night, and I took a wrong turn, and I was going to get a Diet Coke, picking Gwen up at the airport, which is unusual. It's usually the opposite. And I remember finding this one place open. It was 11 something at night. So, these guys wanted to get out of there. In my whole lifetime, this past year, I have never been treated by everybody in that place so respectfully, with such kindness. If I could explain to you. And so as I was leaving, I was trying to figure out where I was exactly so I could do a tweet at Wendy's or I wanted to find out who owned it and tell them that was the nicest I've ever been treated in my life.
Yeah.
In my life. And I couldn't figure out where it was. And I still hate that I can't even remember. I was so disoriented trying to figure, I'd gotten lost a little bit, which is not a shock, by the way. Seriously, I was so moved by that. And I love seeing that in anybody. It's effortless for them, but it takes effort.
Right.
And it speaks to the culture of that shop too, and that particular organization. We were talking at some point about doing work overseas, and gratitude shows up very differently in different cultures.
Yeah.
And particularly in Japan, they've formalized it in a way that's very, very interesting. Business is made, the wheels are greased, if you will, by this concept called giri. Giri, I think is the Western spelling of it, giri. And it basically means that you give a gift, but it also, there's obligation that comes with the gift. And that's the thing that adds this little complexity to it. So if you can imagine, at your Christmas, when you're unwrapping your underwear there, if instead you opened it up and there was a Rolex in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Is that what are you hinting to me and Mike? That's
Yeah.
what we're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, boys.
Oh, my.
Papa needs a Rolex.
We're gonna
Yeah.
need some more advertisers.
Rolex, if you're listening to this, we'd be happy
Yeah,
to.
right.
sponsor
Exactly.
Your
We'd love to be
So
your
no,
spokesperson.
but I mean, so you get this nice thing, right? And so then there's this feeling of obligation that you have about that. And so that is a part of the chemistry there. So the giving of the gift, it has to be, and this is what's so weird, is it has to be really nice. It has to be thoughtful, but it can't be too nice and too thoughtful. And that's why if you go into like the train stations and whatnot in Tokyo, you'll see these cases that are full of amazing fruit that are like the most beautiful apple you've ever seen in your life. And it's wrapped in like some cellophane and some cushioning, and it comes in a little wooden box, and that's to be given to like a teacher or somebody that you want to say thank you. It's important to say thank you, but you don't want to say so much thank you that you create this sense of unnatural obligation. And so there's this calculus at work inside that place. And certainly as our president's flown around the world and they're giving him planes and crowns and,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that's about. And so you got to feel like, though, if somebody's giving you a 747, there might be some obligation to it. I'm just saying. I'm just going to go ahead and say. So this idea, though, of giri, I think is important. The last thing about the Japanese that I want to share that I like very much is they quickly corrected me that when you bow to a person who is of greater stature than you, you do bow a little lower, but it's not to indicate that they're that much better than you. You bow a little lower to pour more of your ego out so that you are able to be present with that individual and what that individual can teach or give to you. And so that little pivot in the metaphor really helped me because we're Americans and I'm not going to bow. What are you kidding me right now? But when they said that, it was like, okay. So I could imagine, John Wayne bowing like that because John Wayne was just all, but he had to pull a little bit of himself out to be ready to talk to whoever was there. Good thoughts, I think, that your ego gets in the way of the way the gratuity is offered. And those of us who travel all the time, I don't know about y'all, but I am a big tipper.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would like to think that I'm a dang good tipper.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
especially people like Uber drivers and people like that. And now I find out that they look at your profile. They know you're a good tipper,
They know.
which I think is a brilliant part of the algorithm,
Right.
Speaking of tipping, let's talk about this because I still tip over the top of a tip. When they have, we've already got gratuity included, and then they have
me too.
where do y'all stand there?
I always add something.
Yeah.
Some of it just depends on what they've already got added in, but I certainly always, I mean, unless the service is just awful, then I obviously don't. But generally, if it's good service, I always offer something over and above what they've already counted.
And they usually do 18%, but I always do over 18%. So
Yeah,
they've
me
already
too.
shortened themselves
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
And usually there's a group of us, and we all throw our cards in.
Right.
And you split. And so we all go, what are we doing extra? So it's and we're with friends that think the way that we do.
Right.
I was doing a Microsoft gig in Atlanta.
They're working
And
hard.
we were poor. We were a poor little company, and we're doing this big gig in Atlanta. And my operations guy, we pull up in front of the hotel, and he gets out, and we had a bunch of gear in the back. And his name was Peter Kim, amazing guy. And he goes over to the dude in the front of the hotel and hands him a $50 bill and says, "Hey, blah 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 blah." And I saw this transaction occur, and we're now walking in the hotel, and I stopped Kim and I look at him and I said, "A $50 bill? You just gave the guy a $50 bill?" And he just looked at me like, "You're such a novice. Don't even. I'm not even gonna argue with you about this. Just shut up." We go up to our room. We're in our room for about 14 minutes before we have to go zipping off to a meeting. We go back downstairs. Our car is still there. Well, what he told the guy was, "We're going to be in and out of this hotel 37 times in the next. Why don't you just leave the car right there? And every day you do, there's a $50 tip in it for you." And that saved our bacon
Yeah.
repeatedly.
Sure.
And so it's about knowing where the right. And by the time we were done, I wanted to give that guy like 10 50s because he had done so much for us. So
I love those guys. The ones that they're extremely helpful. You go to great hotels, fine hotels, whatever. And I love they're on you, but they're on you in a very beautiful way. And I spent a lot of money before, by the time that the guy shuts the door after he brings ice or whatever,
Yeah, right.
I spent quite a bit of money between there and the car and the vehicle, whatever in there. And I feel so good about it because I feel like those guys they deserve it. They're working really hard. And I've always,
You're being generous to yourself, I think, when you do that. I mean, it feels like you're being generous to the person who's helping you, but it ends up just coming right back
sure.
Right,
to help
right,
you out.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think when we look at this idea of gratitude, and being authentic, I think part of it, and Randy, it touches a little bit about what you said about the Japanese, but I think so many times people are grateful, but they expect something in return.
Right.
And the Benedictines would say that that's not really gratitude.
That's right.
Sure.
They would say that really is more an exercise of the ego than anything
It's
else,
transactional.
as you said.
Yeah.
And
Got
I think
strings attached.
from a leader's perspective, you certainly have lots of leaders that can be supposedly grateful, but in essence, what they're really trying to do is get something back. I'm gonna be grateful to you about this, but I expect you to do this for me, or to push this agenda, or to do this, or to do that. And I think from a leadership perspective, gratitude, when it's not done authentically, when it's
Mhm.
done for other reasons or other agendas, it can be as damaging as gratitude done for the right
Yeah.
reason can be positive. I think that because people will begin to see that, people will begin to figure that out, and they'll say, "Oh, here he goes again. Where he's going to just say this again, and he's going to want me to do this." And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of leaders where that's the way that they think, and it's like, you want to take a 2x4 and slap them upside the head with it and say, you can't even get out of your own way here, because this is what you're doing, and you're not even doing it consciously. You're doing it unconsciously.
It poisons the water. Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah,
All gratitude.
you can't have conditions on gratitude.
Right.
First of all, second of all, one of the things that I've noticed with our foundation, when we have our big foundation event in June, and they come in for 3 and 4 days, sometimes 5, the big CEOs, our big donors, all of those folks, they are so similar, so similar when it comes to gratitude. And I don't think I've ever thought about it until we've talked about it today. I've noticed it, but I've never noticed it as a complete body of work in
Yeah.
all of these people. So I'm wondering, you guys that y'all consult these big businesses, I'm wondering, these guys are the head guys. How does that leak into everybody that works for them and their team? If they're the umbrella and everybody's under it, when they see their boss and the owner who is very wealthy, very generous, always in this, but so grateful, how does that help the company's mission and success?
Well, clearly it's a demonstration of authenticity that means something. And we'll zoom in on that just a little bit more. From a cognitive perspective about the way your brain works in the world, it's extremely important that there is a completed sequence, right? So follow me here. There's Steve, I'm looking at you right now. So there's me and there's you, my perception of you, and then there's your perception of me. But then there's my perception of your perception of me.
Oh.
What do I think you think about me? And then there's what do you think I think about you? And you can kind of carry this out there, right? So what happens in gratitude when it works is there is this connection of I see you. I'm telling you I see you. You see me. I know you see me. And I am now completing the circuit by saying I'm acknowledging what you did or how you did it in a way that says you improved the lives of all of us because of the way you did that. And so it is this visibility that the real self is shown and honored in that space. And that feels really good. But if it's,
Right.
to my point, if it's like, oh, here, I'm giving you this because it's, you got the trophy of the week. Congratulations. You can park in the special spot next Tuesday. Isn't that fantastic? A big hand, everybody. But, that's because this person worked until their eyes bled for 78 hours. And so let's, whatever. I mean, it's got to be real, and it's got to be that moment where there's this sort of eye contact connection where it's truly valued.
Yeah.
And one thing I see, go ahead. One thing I see too is the other thing that can permeate into the organization is when that's carried forth in all of the gatherings, whether it's meetings or conferences or whatever the case may be. One of the things that I like to recommend is anytime you do a meeting, start that meeting by going around the room and giving one thing you're grateful for. because what it does is it sets the table. All of a sudden, you got people that are coming into a meeting and they're stressed out and they got this and that and the other thing going on. But all of a sudden you do this mind shift that says, "Oh,
Nice.
well, now let's start thinking about something that you're grateful for." I love it when I do early morning workshops because I'll hit them with, give me 3 things that you're grateful for since you woke up this morning. And in some cases it might only be 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because you get them to think about, and I tell them, I said, I want 3 things that you're grateful for, and one of them can't be that you got out of bed.
Yeah.
So, but all of a sudden it changes the environment. It changes the mojo in the room because now we're not coming in all negative and stressed out and all this kind of stuff. Now we're focused on something positive. And I think it's a great exercise for any team to do at the beginning of your meetings. Start it off with that gratitude exercise, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever.
Is this maybe part of cultivating? Like, how do you do it? How do you cultivate genuine gratitude when you're exhausted? Like, I get tired when I just had 4 days, right? So
Yep.
I'm proud of myself for not jumping on the guy calling me at 1:28, 1:32 in the morning last night. But with that said, how do you control your own self when you're at the point of I've had enough, I'm tired, you got to get some rest. We're not machines. At
Right.
some point, and if we are a machine, at some point we're breaking down and we got to go rest. So how do you juggle that with how you're really feeling? And when at this moment you've got to stop and be grateful.
Yep. Well, part of it is developing that mindset. If you're just all of a sudden going to have to be grateful and you're stressed out and exhausted and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty difficult. Now, as you begin to build that gratitude mindset, whether it's a daily exercise, whether it's the start of meetings, whatever the case may be, it becomes a lot easier to do it, even when you are stressed out and exhausted and all that kind of burnt out or whatever. And I think the other side of that is that when you are at that point and you are able to express that gratitude, that exhaustion, that stressed out, all those kinds of things begin to melt away. That's the
Nice.
amazing part. And that's the research that's been done on this whole idea of gratitude, is that you use this almost for medicinal purposes. You use it from a standpoint, okay, I am exhausted. I am stressed out.
It's more important than ever. Yeah.
It's more important. Yeah. Because now when I express gratitude, I begin to not feel that way as strongly as I was before.
So, Mike, when you go in, I already know gratitude's part of your whole mission statement. It has a lot to do with the purpose and everything that
Yep.
you are. And you talk about gratitude. It's actually something you discuss. Randy, I know you're grateful, and I know that you love working with people that are grateful. Do y'all ever have that discussion on being grateful and gratitude?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I've found very compelling, I'll say it that way, about our SEAL team friends is they have a very interesting approach to gratitude. They come at the world from the point of view that everything is going to go badly, that crap is going to happen, and that things are not going to go right. Things are going to break and the plan is never going to be the way it is, and that it's going to be tough. Their moniker, of course, is the only easy day was yesterday. So this is
Right.
the way they're looking at the world. It's going to be tougher and tougher and tougher every single day. So when you put that mindset into your head, it's reasonable to think you could get depressed pretty quickly. But they have this really kind of can-do attitude about things. So how does that happen? Well, what they've done is they've figured out that when something is terrible, they learn to appreciate the absence of it later. So the classic thing will be, the instructor will say, well, it's your 5-mile swim today, but it's fin appreciation day. And that means you're not going to have your fins. So that means they're going to swim their 5 miles with no fins. But when they're done, the next time they put those fins on, they appreciate the heck out of those fins.
Sure. Yeah.
Those fins become the thing. And
Yeah.
so this business of blah, blah, blah appreciation, whenever something doesn't go right, then you've got dry boat appreciation, or you've got, warm weather appreciation, or whatever it is. You take the negative thing and you turn it into something that you actually appreciate it not being there, or that you're going to get through it. So it's a way of just reframing the entire world so that the world is not there to serve you. The world is not there to make you happy. You have got to adjust to the world.
Right.
And so this is their way of saying, oh, well, hey, this didn't suck quite so much. The other
Yeah.
phrase they use a lot is, you've got to love it when it sucks. And I think this is an important piece. So gratitude shows up when you are cold, tired, wet, and hungry, but you know what? We found a place to stay out of the rain. Wow, this is great. Thank you. So you learned, it's all calibrated into reality. The gratitude doesn't go away. In fact, it maybe gets even bigger as it becomes more truly important. But
Wow.
there are those people in your life that when things go south and you love having them around.
You've
You
been
know?
working with these Navy SEALs, these guys for a lot of years, right? Are they that way beyond being a Navy SEAL in their
Yes,
life?
yes. This shows up in their family lives. It shows up just in the way they do things. These are the guys you want around when things go a little bit sideways. I have been in not particularly sketchy situations, but situations where I'm like, oh, this is kind of weird, but I've got these two guys. I'm no longer worried about anything at this point, you know?
Right.
So there's this sensibility though that they don't have the expectation that the world's going to be delivered to them in a way that they want it and like it. It's going to come at them in ways that they can't anticipate or predict. And so they have this built-in sense of deep gratitude for their teammates, the guy on the left and the guy on the right. The foundation of gratitude is a part of the team culture. And this is what Mike was getting to as he's talking about changing the tone in the room and bringing up this business of,
Right.
you know,
There's a great book, and Randy, I'm sure you've read it, but it's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
oh yes, yeah, that's a good
One of
one.
the all-time classics,
I
but
love how you always say, I know Randy's read it.
And well, this is a big one. No, I haven't read all, but
he
this
might
one
have
is a
read this
big one.
one.
Yeah.
But it's written by a guy that was a prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp, and he talks about and it's really this idea of being committed to a purpose, and in that particular place, the purpose was to stay alive and to really be committed to that purpose. The idea of gratitude shows up in there as well. I mean, I can remember at one point in the book, he's talking about getting assigned to a particular detail. And he was always so grateful that he got assigned to that detail because he knew that he wasn't going to to the ovens that day.
Yeah.
And you think about that type of gratitude, awfully difficult in that situation to be grateful for anything. Yeah, I mean, you're
I do hear that in people facing terminal illnesses.
right.
It's very interesting too, where you'll see somebody who's got this very rough diagnosis, and yet they, wow, the last test showed, blah blah blah, and that's a good sign, and so they're grabbing a hold of it, and they're gonna take it on, So it is interesting how gratitude changes, it attenuates itself differently based on the situation and your perspective of the world. So, right now, if somebody said, oh, you've only got a year to live, you might go, oh, geez, that's terrible. But if you thought you only had a week to live, all of a sudden
The
that
year
year
was
sounds pretty darn good.
right.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
heavy stuff, my friends.
it is. Yeah, it
What's
really is. And from a leadership perspective, I think it's so important because it really is that first step to creating a culture, what I call a community, a community of people that are coming together, committed to a higher purpose vision, really looking at how do we create this team, this organization, this business, whatever it is, this band, whatever it is, how do we create that? And this idea of gratitude is where we start. It's that first step to say, when we become grateful for each other, when we become grateful for all the blessings that we've got in our lives, when we become grateful for even adversity and
Hmm.
understanding that sometimes adversity leads to good things, leads to more learning, leads to more opportunities, those kinds of things, and we're grateful for those, then I think it really sets the wheels in motion to be able to do what we want to do as a group, as a team, as an organization.
So in your homes, in your Thanksgiving dinners, do you do the circle of gratitude thing before you eat?
Well, yeah, a lot of times we have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not all the
It's
time, a lot of times, yeah.
And then there's
And
always
the
one or
other
two people that just, I
right,
just want to eat. I'm thankful
right.
for
Well,
these peas. Yeah.
and with Thanksgiving, coming up upon us here, and one of the things that I think with Thanksgiving, especially because it is a day of gratitude, it is a day, but we have a tendency to get so caught up, and I'm certainly as guilty as this as anybody. we get so caught up in the food, and all three of us, of course, love to cook. So, and I'm sure all three of us are going to be up to our eyeballs in the kitchen come Thanksgiving. But we get so caught up in all of that, and we get caught up in the people that are coming, and we get caught up in having the right, silverware and dishes out, and we get caught up in what the menu is going to look like and all that kind of stuff, that we forget about the purpose of the day. We
Yeah.
forget about the fact that the day is all about giving thanks. It's giving thanks that we're able to do all of these things that we're able to do. You know what? Let the stuff happen. Everybody's going to go home that day, stuffed to the gills and, satisfied with the group. But let's take that time, I think, to say, let's just be grateful that we get to do this.
Here's the deal. None of us, the three of us, are capable of being like our 90-year-old grandmothers in the day, 80, 85, 90, whatever it was, 60, 75, all the way, all those years. None of us are capable of being that calm in the kitchen where nothing bothers you. So, and second of all, they didn't allow you in the kitchen, so that kept them sane.
Right.
Everybody's all over each other now. Next thing I'd like to say is thank you for including me. At least I love to cook, because I know when the reading thing happens, y'all don't include me. And let me ask both of y'all. Let me ask you guys something about this. Tell me about gratitude. If it's not nurtured at a young age, if it's not nurtured in your being, and it's not part of your DNA as you grow up, right? And inserted into your DNA, like let's just say, how can you get someone who's never had that really growing up? How can you turn the gratitude switch on when it's not in their DNA at this point?
I think it's all about habit. It's all about habit, that you have to, you can't, when I talk to companies and organizations, everybody wants the magic bullet. They want here's the quick fix. This is how we do it, but in reality, very rarely does it ever happen quickly. And I think it's the same thing with gratitude, in that we have to practice it. Gratitude isn't just something that we do naturally, unless we've been brought up. And I think the three of us have all been brought up in environments where it was important. But
Yeah.
those that haven't, it really becomes a habit. It's got to be practiced. It's got to be done over and over and over again. And I think that you'll see people that will try it and, oh yeah, well, that didn't do much for me. It's not unlike doing anything else. If I'm going to go on a diet, I'm not going to spend one day on the diet and then go eat 4 Big Macs the next day.
Yeah. Well, you might do that, but let me just say this. But if only the ones that have not been exposed to it at a young age, and
Right.
all of a sudden you're coming in there. Okay, so it's for example, a lot of people aren't good at saying I love you. Like I'm always on a mission to my friends. I'll go, hey, I love you, buddy. And when they don't tell me for years, and all of a sudden they do, and I go, victory, chalk it up. Second of all, or they're not huggers. Some people are
Right.
huggers,
Right.
girls and guys. I'm talking both,
Yeah.
both. And so I'm always on a mission to get them to learn how to hug. So that's sort of my thing. But how do you first? Okay, I've asked that question. People, if they only knew what it felt like and what you received from it by not wanting to receive it in your lifetime as you go, you can look back in that rearview mirror and goes, oh my God, if I wasn't nice to that person growing up, that would have never happened. That
Right.
would have never happened. That would, and you don't count along the way. But we get to count when we look back at the age we're at now and look way back and go, oh my gosh, if we didn't
Right.
take that time to be that grateful, that never happens. And I'm not here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard a teacher being interviewed up in Portland, Oregon, and she was in charge of, I can't remember if it was transitioning kids from elementary school to middle school or what it was, but she was a counselor. And they said, well, here's these 200 kids are going to come in. And so how do you help them bridge this transition? And she says, well, for a good number of them, we spend time on how to human. That's what she said. How to human. And she said, these kids come in and they don't know, if they don't have a pencil, they don't know how to get a pencil. They don't know how to ask for a pencil. They don't have fundamental social engagement skills. And so this teacher is charged with teaching them to human. And I thought that was a very interesting statement to make. But basically she's saying we can't get to the higher order stuff because these foundational pieces are not in place.
Right.
And I'm hearing this nationally, right? And the people that are hiring, the next gen folks have these weird culture clashes because the next gen folks don't know that they should have a little bit of expressed gratitude about things or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, wow, because then we assume that because they didn't say thank you, they're rude.
Right.
And it was just, no, they just it never occurred to them to do that. Right. So
No,
this has
on.
to all be called out now and negotiated.
Yeah, but doesn't it need to be called out? No, aren't you supposed to say the words? So if you
Yeah,
didn't
yeah. But
the words, how do
it's
you know?
not happening in their house. It's not happening in their house. And
This is
that's
where we are now with a lot of the kids that are coming up, and my kids I had to, sometimes go, hey, you know what? Thank your mother for what she did. Don't complain about that you don't like this food.
right.
You have to create that nurturing, as we've talked about earlier, and it's got to be something that eventually seeps in, and it does work. I've seen it. It worked with our kids, and now they're that way. But
That's right.
trust me, they weren't always that way. And they've learned to be that way. So I just feel like if you're not taught a daily basis, just constantly, and this is you're talking years of it.
Right.
Yeah, so when you see a kid who's being selfish, right?
How do you
got to nip it like Barney Fife, man. You got to nip it in the bud, nip it. Selfish.
Yeah, I got it. But you can do that all you want, but until they finally get it, they're not going to get it.
Nip it.
So they finally get it. So if you know it takes all these years for them to go, so if 15, 20 years of nurturing till they're on their own and they come back, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? How can you, when they haven't had that growing up in the workplace, and people they want to work and all that, but they don't understand that. It's just not been in a core value. What do you do? How do you get it?
Yeah, I mean, and again, some of that is change management. Some of it is understanding that we have to, if we've got people that are like that, first and foremost, as leaders, we have to start modeling the opposite. We have to be the first ones to say thank you. We have to be the first ones that encourage others to say thank you.
Okay.
And, if you look at Kotter's pyramid of change management, one of the things that he'll say is get cheerleaders. So finding others that will say thank you, and all of a sudden it starts to build, and all of a sudden when you got 90% of your people saying thank you all the time, the other 10% don't feel very good about themselves. And because they're seeing something completely foreign to them. And so I think it does take time, but I think modeling that gratitude is so important in an organization and that's got to start with the leader. And if the leader's not that way, then someone within a team starts it with a team. And all of a sudden that team starts exercising gratitude. And guess what? The word starts to get out. Well, these guys start all their meetings with a gratitude exercise. Maybe we ought to try that. Look at how well they're doing. Sometimes it's a bottom up approach that happens. So I think either way, the modeling aspect of it, and then finding those cheerleaders that can go ahead and continue to bring it to light and to expand it across an organization is vital.
I think that was a pretty good summary.
I think that was a summary, but I have to sum up I have to say this at the end of this whole thing. That was a summary of everything. And that answered a lot of questions. If you're in the business workplace, you be the example for someone that maybe not is be touchy-feely, huggy, right? I'm grateful, which is what I'm really talking about. So you just said it. You be the guy and then eventually it will spread into their being. But recently, a couple weeks ago, I did a little Head Start program with 3 and 4 year olds. And I didn't think about this as much until today's session with you guys. And I asked this little kid, how are you doing? Just saying it, He goes, I'm fine. And right before I pulled away, he grabbed my arm and goes, how are you doing? And I went, he's 3 or 4 years old. And I went, I'm good. I'm good. And he goes, well, what did you do today to make you feel good? So I'm going like, wait a minute, it's early in the morning. I haven't thought about that. Well, I prayed, I worked out, and I hugged my wife and told her I loved her. And he goes, and what else? And I was getting quizzed on that. And then all of a sudden, little kid gave me a hug. And I said, oh my, this kid is grateful. This kid's so whatever's going on at their home is working.
Beautiful.
And that kid I got chills thinking about it. That's why
gives me hope for the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This kid's at a head.
I'll bring this all together because we're out of time, fellas. So Thanksgiving is upon us. Certainly take the time to give thanks. Take the time to be grateful to everyone around you, everybody that's coming to your house, even if the turkey's on fire. Take time to do that. I know for me, I am so incredibly grateful for you two guys. We've had so much fun doing this and continue to do it going forward. For those of you that are listening to this for the first time, there's all kinds of good stuff back. My wife just told me she listened to 3 podcasts in the car the other day, so she's getting all caught up on our stuff, But find us on all the major platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Music, they're all there. Or you can go to resonanceleader.com, and that's got links to all of the places. Subscribe to them so that you can keep getting people, well, are you on there? Can I subscribe to it? I absolutely subscribe to it. They come out every Thursday morning.
Bring us into a conference. We're ready to roll, the 3 of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want the live version of this, reach out and touch base with us on the website, and we'd love to talk to you about doing that in person. So with that, happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
Everybody be safe.
Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.